What's up, y'all? LTJ Reads here. This is Throwing Light, and if you're not throwing light, you're not acting right. I am kind of just getting up this morning. Our guest is like 7 hours ahead of us. Before we start, I want to remind everybody that I am putting effort into boosting up my YouTube channel. You can catch all the Throwing Light interviews on my YouTube channel, and we have the Throwing Light tour videos that are going on there. So you can learn a lot about that and what each community is going through and what their solutions are into helping to bring each other in. So the Throwing Light Together tour is on there. Plus, you're going to see a lot of personal creative projects that I'm working on. I'm involved in television and right now and production, and so I'm really excited to do some cool things and help bring the community together through art. If you can, please visit my YouTube channel, subscribe, get the notifications so you know when we have new content coming. I would greatly appreciate it. Always, you're free to reach out to ask me questions anytime. I would love to answer your questions. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and kick it over to Mace, our Mr. It's Mr. Leather Netherlands or Mr. Netherlands
Yep.
Leather?
Mr. Leather Netherlands, 2025.
There you go. All right. So we've actually met in person. So that's great.
Uh-huh.
I
In
met
Manchester.
you at Manchester Leather Weekend, which I plan to return next year. I'm excited about that. You were just getting ready to compete. I'm sure that was in your brain. I know you were getting ready to do Leather Europe.
Mhm.
Before we get into our newfound relationship and connection, what got you to this title? Like, how did you get involved? How did you get here? How long you been involved in the community?
Mhm. I got my first leather about 10 years ago. And before that, I was already sort of walking around in I would say the BDSM fetish scene. Um, I had some rubber, I played around a bit, and I had some friends who said, we have some leftover leather, we got some new stuff, we want to get rid of some old stuff. Do you want to buy it for a sort of symbolic small price? And that's how I got my first leather. And since then, I've been getting into the leather scene more and more. And originally, it's a fetish, right? It's something that turns you on. It's something you're interested in. Um, but it shifts a bit over time. You feel at home in the community. Um, Something that I've really started to appreciate it is sort of the visibility when you're out in public in leather. Right? This is one way to really show that not only are you gay or queer, right? You don't see straight men in this outfit, um, but you're choosing to display that very publicly, and that's something that's been very important to me in, let's say, the past couple of years. Um, and that was sort of the message that I took into my title election. Um, 1.5 years ago, I just lost my job, unfortunately, and I'd been kind of sick for a couple of weeks. Nothing extremely major, but still, I was at home and I was bored. So I was just thinking about what I really wanted to do with my time. I had enough savings that I didn't immediately need a new job, and so I just had the freedom to do what I want. And then I found out that the signups for the Mr. Leather Netherlands election were about to close. And I figured, why not? If I can contribute something to this scene that's pretty important to me in that way, that would be great. And if I don't get elected, that's fine. But this is the time to try it. And I did, and then I won. And that's 14 months ago now. So my title year is over. We have a new Mr. Leather Netherlands, but I had a great time.
So I want to bring it back. Why?
Hmm.
Why? Why the title? Why the
Uh-huh.
leadership?
So I can look back now and I can realize now that I don't really didn't really appreciate what a title year would entail, which I think is true for a lot of, let's say, us title holders. You don't really know what you're getting into before you try out for it. Um, what it was for me is I wanted um, to just give something back, right? I wanted to spend some time on something that would be useful for the leather scene. Um, I was already volunteering at this queer organization, which I'm still doing, which is not really fetish related. Um, and I didn't really think we needed another event in the Netherlands. We have a lot of socials, we have a lot of parties, so that didn't really seem like it would be useful to take that sort of initiative. Um, so I was honestly still thinking about what shape it would take, what it would mean for me to do that. And then these elections came along, and my idea with it was kind of, I think I have a real idea of what makes the leather scene so beautiful, and I want to share that with the world. Um, and on the other hand, it's kind of low stakes, right? If they have a better candidate, they can vote for that candidate. It's not like I'm forcing myself into anywhere. I'll let the community decide if they agree with sort of my vision for what we could do with the leather scene. And then they elected me, so I guess they agreed.
So then let's go from there. What is your vision, or what was?
So I think there's a lot of aspects to it, but the thing I often summarize it as is about visibility. So it was just as I was saying before, one of the things I really appreciate about leather is this, it's almost a liberatory idea about autonomy, about self-determination, about choosing in a very deliberate and specific way the way you present yourself to the world, right? So I go out in leather, I'm very visibly gay. I In that sense, it's a little bit like drag, right? Drag is sort of the feminine version of I'm choosing a sort of public queer identity. And I often think of leather as sort of the masculine version of drag, at least for a gay man. Um, and so what's important about that to me, it's like, if I take the train and I'm wearing regular clothes, I don't really get clocked as gay very much, like I might wear like something rainbow bracelet or whatever. But if I'm wearing leather, it's hard to avoid me, You have to confront the fact that there are, and it doesn't have to be about sexuality, that there are lots of people who live lives in a way that you might not, well, might not agree with is a bit dramatic, but that might not be normal to you, but you nonetheless have to share the world with them. And that's something that I think is really beautiful about wearing leather.
So when you wear leather out in public,
Hmm.
you are empowered because you are showing an authentic part of yourself.
Hmm.
Um, how are you met with people? I mean, you're in the Netherlands.
Uh-huh.
I know, I'm sure we still have our own stereotypes, the
Hmm.
village people, all of that. But what is the environment like for you? What is it like wearing leather out? What city are you in?
I'm in Amsterdam, so it's probably the easiest one, I would say.
So, being in Amsterdam and being a leather person, what is the response that you get when you're out in public?
It's mostly so it's mostly kind of quiet. Like people, their heads turn and then they look back, and that's fine by me. They want to sneak a glance at the guy who's walking past. Um, Most of the interactions that I've had where someone really comes up to me have been positive. Um, what I found surprising, this hasn't happened a lot, but a handful of times, someone's sort of like a little group. Um, it's usually younger guys, like older teenagers, maybe early 20s guys. Maybe they're a little drunk, really on public transit. Um, and they're kind of snickering, I can tell that they're looking and they're sort of whispering to each other and maybe pointing. And it's not very mean, but it's just they think it's kind of funny. And it depends on the situation, depends on the vibe, it depends on the mood, but I like to go up to them. And usually they're very nice, like they're very open to it. They just think it's funny. And then if you challenge them a little bit, they respond mostly positively. Um, and with the sash, especially, you get a lot of questions, right? It's very big, it's very visible. So people sometimes stop me on the street and they ask me, hey, what's that about? Um, I have had some sort of situation where someone yells at me, something on the street, um, but it's really genuinely quite rare. Um, and I mostly feel very safe here going around in leather, and I feel very, welcome in the streets.
Let's go back. Why do you
Hmm.
think the kids on transit were laughing?
It's out of their comfort zone, I guess. right? They don't usually see this. They have some image of this, right? I don't know, they know the Village People, they know the Gimp from Pulp Fiction, they know the Police Academy stereotype. Um,
Do they? Do you
and
think so? Because I'm catching
Mhm.
all the references I get. I remember the leather scene in Police Academy.
uh-huh.
I'm aware of the Village People, but I'm 41. And so,
Right. Okay. Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? I'm
Uh-huh.
not convinced that people that are 20, half my
Uh-huh.
age, are going back to the 80s and looking at, they may be, don't get me wrong. When I was growing up as a kid in the 90s, I was
Uh-huh.
obsessed with the 80s, right? I
Uh-huh.
knew these things. I grew up with that. But now I'm encountering, a generation, and here in the US where,
Uh-huh.
you know, they've never seen Halloween. They've never seen Friday the 13th. They've
Uh-huh.
never seen Nightmare on Elm Street. You know what I'm saying? Like they don't.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm fascinated with what could they. For me, I feel like when I encounter youth, they don't know what's going on, and they're inept, like they're wanting to understand. But I
Uh-huh.
do want to say something to the fact that when you're walking around, when I was in my sash year, my sash is hung up now. It was a point of conversation, and I do
Uh-huh.
believe that people just want answers. They want their questions
Mhm.
answered most of the time,
Mhm.
and once you answer their questions, they're good. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
I mean, like, do you? I mean, what do you think of that? I'm not sure how old you are, but do you think there is a generational gap, or do you really think
Uh-huh.
that the youth know what's going on 20 years ago?
Uh-huh. So the things about the 80s, those are just sort of the cultural. I'm 33, so I'm a little bit younger than you, but you know, I'm a little closer to these references. I don't literally mean these references. I just mean that there's this public image of like the leather daddy, and I'm trying to think of sort of more recent examples. Like there's this bit on Arrested Development, for instance, or there's this, but these are now I'm out of the 80s and I'm going into the 90s and the early 2000s is like there's this Sex and the City scene where Samantha's with all these leather daddies. I just mean this image of the leather cop or the leather daddy or the leather man. It exists sort of in popular culture kind of as a joke, right?
Yeah.
It's
Mm.
um and it doesn't necessarily have to be the Village People or Police Academy, but it has to be, but that's still around, right? If you could have this on Family Guy, for instance. I don't watch Family Guy, but I imagine at least once there's been like a character in sort of fetish gear or leather gear on there, and it's like a recognizable um, um, cultural archetype or something.
I feel like
So,
I've walked past, like, I feel like I've gotten that, like,
uh-huh,
just walking by and a village person rep, like that happens.
uh-huh,
And I think when that happens, the person already kind of has made up in their mind what they think of it. And so they're not looking
uh-huh,
to have a conversation. So you can be walking past them and they're like, in the Navy or whatever. And,
uh-huh, uh-huh,
okay. But then there's also like the heterosexual person that's like, hey,
uh-huh,
what's that sash on your? Hey, what are you
uh-huh,
wearing? Oh, you look
uh-huh,
cool.
uh-huh.
You know?
Yeah, so you have
You
convers
look cool? Do you?
uh-huh. Yeah, in the full leather, not so much, but I'll wear something a little lighter, like I'll wear just like leather jeans and a leather vest, and I get compliments. It's nice. Um, and then yeah, and it's about having conversations, right? It's easy, I think, to feel threatened by people who are questioning you out of nowhere. Um, but actually, it's very disarming to just be open and honest with people. Um, which I'm surprised I'm pretty good at. Like before my title year, I would have considered myself kind of shy and sheltered. Well, sheltered is a big word, but sort of shy and introverted. And I've really appreciated how well I've adapted to sometimes being the center of attention. And I'm also not unhappy that that's over, but it was nice to do it for a year, and I think I adapted to that pretty well.
So And during your year or just in general, like what is like an event or something that you've done that
Mhm.
has helped enhance your visibility? Like what really was like, this is a moment for Mace here. I'm going to be
Uh-huh.
visible and
Uh-huh.
and hopefully get other people to do the same.
So the sort of my I did a lot of things during my year. They were mostly smaller. One thing that was really my own initiative that I did almost entirely by myself is I gave these little leather workshops, mostly for students. I approached some queer student organizations in the Netherlands, and I would invite them to, or I would ask them to invite me to their like weekly or monthly gathering, and I'd give like a little presentation on leather culture, on leather history, what it's about, why people do it, and where it comes from. And then mostly what I did is I would bring a bunch of leather, I would just stuff as much into two suitcases as I could, and then I would let them all try it out and just give them like a really concrete experience with leather in the way that that's normally not so easy. You could go into a leather store, but obviously there the expectation is that you might be there to buy something, and if not, that's sort of it's not exactly rude, but like you can't just do dress up party at a store with 20 people. It's a little different. Um, and it was nice. The reactions were very positive. For a lot of them, it was sort of the first time encountering something like this. And that's sort of the small and personal. Um, the more sort of open thing is I did a bunch of interviews, sort of similar to this one. I've done a fair number in sort of queer media in the Netherlands in print and also audio. Um, I participated in the it was kind of a funny coincidence, but I participated in the Drag Olympics this year in Amsterdam. It's a yearly event around Pride, and it's sort of a comical thing, right? But the drag queens do the stiletto run and the handbag toss, and they, you know, compete for some silly prizes. And I was there just to watch, and then one of the drag queens was like, "Why don't you compete? Just come on stage with us." Um, that was really nice. See another good example of the visibility thing. Um, a lot of it was also just going to smaller Pride events in the Netherlands. So in Amsterdam Pride and also in Utrecht Pride, which is probably the second biggest one, there's always a fair amount of leather and fetish presence. Um, but it's not as obvious in smaller prides, which we have a lot of. So I've just been in a lot of pride marches and been there sometimes as one of only a handful of leathermen, and that's also been really nice.
So, what is Amsterdam like for a leather person? Or, not even that, just what is the culture like? Um, Look, you got people from the US that literally only know stereotypical things about Amsterdam
Uh-huh.
watching this.
Just the windmills and the weed, right?
Are we, so how safe do you feel walking around as who you are in Amsterdam?
Uh-huh. No, I feel incredibly safe. I I'm not going to say I've never had a negative experience, but they really don't stack up that much uh, to all the positive experiences I've had. Um, but I know it's not universal, right? There are queer people in Amsterdam who don't feel as safe going out, or in the Netherlands, for example. Um, Maybe one example to name is you're familiar, I'm sure, with the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence. And we have one sister in the Netherlands, and she doesn't really feel that comfortable going out as a sister completely by herself. She's had a few like really bad experiences, um, or maybe just like one really bad one. And since then, she's like, okay, I want to be either with someone or I'll change at the event. Um, so it's not universal, and that's also it sort of um, ties into this visibility thing, this confronting people with the fact that there's always going to be people outside the norm. Because if there's like someone who's obviously queer on every street corner, then you might not pay so much attention to the sister in her white makeup, you know? It's just one of those many weirdos you see on the street all day.
I'm gonna give you this question, okay? Are you ready? This
Yeah.
question I'm gonna give you. What do you think? Is it easier to be out in drag or out as a leather person?
Way easier in leather. Way easier in leather. Um, so of course this is complicated again. I think there might be some people who are more threatened by a leather man than by a drag queen, but they're pretty rare. Um, and uh, I think a big part of it is that, if you're wearing leather, I compared it to drag earlier, but of course you're sort of affirming your gender role in a way, right? I'm exaggerating my masculinity by wearing the leather uniform and the wear cap and the boots. Um, and even if that reads as very queer, and it is a little bit also defying gender norms, right? Because you're supposed to um, to perform a natural masculinity, not an exaggerated extreme masculinity. But it's still more accepted than performing an exaggerated femininity. Um, so yes, for sure, I think I have it easier, but I don't really have a calling for drag. So that's not going to be it for me. I'm afraid.
I thought I wanted to when RuPaul's Drag Race came out, like everybody wanted to be a
Uh-huh.
drag queen when it first happened. But like
Uh-huh.
I got to
Uh-huh.
do drag for my fundraiser for IML, and
Uh-huh.
I don't want to shave, dude. I'm gonna have to be
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna have to be a bearded queen, and that's just what it is. Because
Uh-huh.
it tastes great, but I getting into masculinity. See, this is where it blurs for me because I
Uh-huh.
know that leather, we have the Tom Feeling image, but I think I gravitate between this negotiation of masculinity and just feeling safe and secure and strong.
Hmm.
And I don't know if I because I've encountered some powerful leather women. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? And
Yeah.
that it's hard. I get because we gender everything, and it's just like for me, um when I'm in full leather, if I'm in leather walking around, I'm just like, hey, nobody's gonna. In my head, I'm like, no one should mess with me. You know what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
Like,
Uh-huh.
I'm like, I'm going from point A to point B. I look good. I'm in this outfit.
Uh-huh.
But that's an interesting thing. I don't know now, being, a part of this community for only over 3 years, but I've grown so much tremendously and done some things.
Hmm.
But I think that that might have been my initial attraction, this like hyper masculinity. But now
Hmm.
that I'm in it and I have it, it's just so much about empowerment, and it's become
Uh-huh.
so gender neutral to me because
Hmm.
there are tons of leather women that I would be submissive to. You get what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
So,
Yeah.
do you feel like do you have that same kind of negotiation in you where it's like this is making me feel more masculine, but this is also making me more powerful? And,
Hmm.
and and do you think there's a difference between those two things?
Um, so I could talk about, I think the answer to that question could be hours long, but maybe there's a short version. Um, For me, sort of as a fetish, those things are tied together, right? It's the uniform, the leather, the tough master. That's the image that I find myself in, that turns me on, that makes me excited. That's how I started in leather, and that's still what excites me the most about it, sort of individually. Um, it also makes me feel good now, right? Like I put the wear cap on, I look in the mirror, and I'm like, oh yeah, there he is again. Now I recognize myself again. It really feels like coming into myself in a way. Um, but also I bought a kilt this year, which I refer to as my leather skirt. I did the Drag Olympics, had a face full of makeup. I wear sort of as a fetish, I like the sort of fully dressed. I'm wearing leather shirt, leather jeans, high boots, cap, and so on. Um, but for club setting, I like to wear just a harness and show my body off. So let's say as a fetish, yeah, it's about the masculinity and the sort of the power that's associated with that in a sort of specific fetish scene. Um, when it comes to more, feeling confident, feeling good about myself and how I look, it's become much wider than that, especially in the past year. Um, and then and then in terms of sort of feminine forms of leather, so to speak, um, I think that's the sort of I love the gender diversity in the leather community. The Dutch leather scene is very male, um, which is not something I am going to be able to fix, but I do hope that we can be as welcoming as we can to people who are not male, women and non-binary people. Um, and and that's great for them, so to speak, but that's not how I present myself.
I think that's great. Okay. It's, you're right. We could literally talk about this for 24 hours. Like,
Uh-huh.
yeah, we could start a class.
Uh-huh.
All right, Mace. I have one question left for you. All right, you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any aspect of our community, and you can think about your local community, that you feel that we
Mhm.
are not shedding enough light on?
Um, that's a good question, actually. I should have prepared for this one. I knew it was coming. Um, so maybe something I've been feeling a lot lately. Since I stepped down from my title, I haven't been in the leather scene as much. I took a bit of a break. I got my own life in order a little bit. I haven't been to as many events. So I've been online a little bit more. Um, and it feels like a lot of the stuff I see online is very much concerned with sort of talking about the leather scene. It's like, okay, um, did someone do something wrong? Is this thing being organized right? Like, and part of this is um, social media algorithms that show you the thing that makes you most likely to engage, right? The thing that's going to make you angry. Um, but I constantly just see posts of, oh, I'm not going to this event because this person will be there, or this person posted this and they already deleted it, but I'm still angry about it. And which is, I'm not saying that any of these complaints are not valid or not important. I'm not naming any specifics, and I think many of them um, may be very real issues. So this is a long preamble, but what I want to say is mostly the thing about being a leather man is that it's so much fun to wear leather, It's it's sexy, it's playful, it's exciting, it gives you a connection with this community of like-minded people where you can be yourself and express yourself in the way that you want. So I miss the joy of being a leather man a little bit. Like, can we all stand still and appreciate how much fun it is to get to do all of this? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes 100%. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Right on. We actually don't talk about having fun.
Uh-huh.
And I'm not talking about like play. I'm just talking about like that's the thing. A lot of us take, being in this community very serious. And sometimes I think we can just be in serious mode a lot of the time.
Uh-huh.
And we don't have the opportunity to be like, hey, have this mass community of people that have a similar perspective of wanting to be visible and be who they are. And
Mhm.
I should really tap into that. I should really connect with that. You know what I'm saying? And so
Mhm.
I think that's something that definitely is something that I think should be a broader discussion. Like what is working hard and what is playing hard for us,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
and I think that we do because I've been told to be careful taking things too seriously sometimes. There
Uh-huh.
are things obviously that we need to take serious, but like
Yeah, 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 yeah.
you got to be able to poke fun at yourself, right?
That too, yeah. But especially it's just like I got into this as a fetish. I got into this because it turns me on, because I find it fun, because it tickles me somehow. And that's something I don't see very much online. And I wanna see more of that. I want people to say, "Oh, it's been you know, I had this event and it was so great. And not just because you felt welcome, but also because it was exciting, because it was thrilling, because it was, uh, yeah, because it was hot, you know.
No, I get you. I get you. Where the drama is by some is ruining the fun for all sometimes.
Yeah, and it's but I think that almost all of these complaints they may be valid, and maybe some of them aren't, and maybe we can duke that out. But can we have it next to the excitement? Can we have more of the excitement? And then we don't need to have less of the serious discussions.
Understood. I got you. All right, Mason. Thank you so much for being on Throwing Light over there in the
Thank-
Netherlands. Me over here in the fabulous state of Texas.
Uh-huh.
So there's only one thing left to do. Why don't you go ahead and let them know?
Uh-huh. Thank you so much for having me. I hope you've all had a good time, people who are watching, because if you're not throwing light, you're not acting right.
And you
Thank
can
you so much.
over there in Amsterdam, spreading the good news of the light. Thank you so much
Uh-huh.
for being on, Mace. Everyone that's watching, thank you for watching another episode. We are ticking up there. I think this is like we're getting close to 150 episodes, y'all. See you next time. Bye.